Hey DJs, this is why you're insane if you're charging less than $800 to DJ a wedding, unless you meet these two things. What's up guys, my name is Nate Acosta and I am a wedding DJ based here in Dallas, Texas. And today I'm gonna talk to you about why you're absolutely insane if you're gonna DJ a wedding for less than $800. And honestly, $800 is still pretty damn cheap, but there's two things to keep in mind, right? I could understand DJing a wedding for less than $800 if they are a close friend or family member. I've done it before, I'm not gonna lie. Or you have been in the game for less than a year and you have like less than 20 weddings under your belt. Because I'm not gonna lie either. I remember the days when I used to charge like $50 an hour to DJ weddings. But I wanna talk to you about if you've been in the game for more than a year and you're trying to level up and you've had people offer you $50 in a sandwich to DJ a wedding, why that's a bad recipe, not just for yourself, but for the couple that's booking you. And if you stick around to the end, man, I'm gonna give you some real costs of DJing weddings, how to price yourself correctly, and even some negotiation tips that you can use to make sure that you're actually getting paid what you're worth. So let's get right to it. So the first things first, man, hidden costs when it comes to DJing weddings. We all know, right? The first and most obvious one is gonna be the equipment. You can't just show up to a wedding with like an iPod and a speaker or an iPad and a speaker and expect to do the job, right? You gotta be able to have the proper equipment. And we know this stuff is not cheap. We're talking speakers, we're talking lighting, we're talking microphones, we're talking mixers, and that stuff is not cheap. You guys already know. Also, prep time, y'all. A lot of people don't take into consideration the amount of prep that we actually put into these weddings. Think about all the times you meet with the couples, the time that you go up to the venue to maybe check out the layout, the emails back and forth with the other vendors, ensuring that everybody has what they need. Does the videographer need to plug into your system? Does the wedding planner need to have you dismiss table? Whatever the case may be, right? There's a lot of time and prep that goes into the actual success of these events. The next one, travel and setup, right? If you're anything like me, most DJs get to these weddings 2 to 3 hours prior to it even starting. We're unloading equipment. We're getting everything set up. We're taping cables down. All of that takes time. And we know time is money. So you got to factor that in. And then insurances. God forbid you have a drunk uncle or aunt that falls over and knocks down a speaker or spills something on a speaker or lighting. If you don't have any insurance in play, that's gonna come out of your pocket directly unless you have a pretty tight-knit contract where you can like go back to the client and get them to pay for it. But that just kind of causes some like weirdness, you know what I'm saying? And then last thing is taxes and marketing, right? Taxes, we know Uncle Sam does not play when it comes to his bag. So making sure that you're setting money aside for taxes, that's a cost of business. And then marketing. To be honest with you guys though, I don't spend that much on marketing. You know, the majority of my like leads come from social media, which is a free tool, but I will throw the occasional money at like boosting reels and stuff like that. But I'm a big proponent in also investing in yourself and investing in your education. So I do sign up for a lot of courses or, you know, apps to make my life easier. So that's all cost of DJing, right? So keep that in mind, man. You got your equipment, again, your prep time, the time that it takes you to arrive to these venues and pay the tolls to get theirs and gas, right? Insurance, and then last but not least, your taxes and marketing. So let's move on. All right, let's talk about the next thing, which is lowballing and why this in reality hurts everybody. And some DJs may think like, oh man, like I don't need all the money. Like it's just a hobby for me, right? But this is why it's not only bad for you as the DJ, but it's bad for everybody. Undercharging, guys, is going to cause burnout. If you think back, right? Do you remember the time where you might have DJ'd 3 or 4 events back to back to back? For me, when I get to that last one, y'all, I'm a little bit more on edge. I'm a little more irritated. I have maybe some resentment built up. And at the end of the day, when you go back and look of everything that you may have spent, there's really not that much profit there. So it's just not a good look, y'all. If you're, you know, you're gonna be working for peanuts and you're gonna hate every single minute of it. So think of it that way, right? You don't wanna be burnt out when it comes to this because you wanna be able to give your best performance every single time you step in front of a crowd. Now, why is it bad for the couple though? If you think about it, right, you think about those cheaper DJs, the ones that really don't take pride in their work. They're often cutting corners. They're often not using the best equipment, so it might sound a little muddier. It just doesn't sound great. And if you think about their skill set, right, that wedding is probably more so of a train wreck. And DJs, you know what I mean by train wreck than a fairy tale. You know what I'm saying? So Think of it that way, man. If you take pride in what you do, you're going to provide a good service. But if you're not taking pride in this, just something you're doing, it's not going to be good for the couple. It just never works out. And this is why it's bad for the industry, y'all. I mean, when you think about this, when you're undercutting other DJs, right, it just devalues us as DJs. People are going to look more so as a commodity. I see it all the time on Facebook groups. You have these brides are saying, hey, well, I just need someone to show up and play music. If that's you, by all means, go do it. But if you are someone that takes pride in the experience that you provide for these couples, you gotta stop undercharging and killing our profession, man. And that's just the point blank period of, again, like I mentioned earlier at the very beginning, if you're a newer DJ or if this is a family member, I completely understand. I was in that same boat. And honestly, I never thought I'd get to a point where I would make more than $1,200 DJing a wedding. The more you think about it and the more that you take pride in what you do, that's just gonna come with it. So let's move on. How you can price yourself right. This is something that I struggled with all the time because I never knew how to price myself right. I never felt that I could get what I was worth. But knowing your worth is the first step in this whole process. And something that I did was I looked at all the other DJ companies in my area that kind of fit the same niche that I was in. And I figured out what they were charging. I found out, hey, whether I asked them or, if you have to do your ninja stuff or if you have to get out there and submit leads to get pricing information, hey, you got to do what you got to do. And so what I did is I went and looked at what all the other DJ companies in my area were charging. And I kind of figured out, okay, well, based off of my skill set, I think that I am worth this amount. And I kind of placed myself in the middle. But then as I began growing, as I began, doing more on social media and kind of building more of a brand for myself, I realized, hey, I can get more than what I was charging. So something that someone told me was book 10 events, and every 10 events that you book at that price, raise it a couple $100. And that's something that I took into consideration and I did for a very long time. I would book 10, all right, bet I'm going to raise it, $200-300. And I kept doing that up until I got to a point where I feel now I'm getting what I'm worth. You also want to factor in everything. Again, think of everything that you spend money on when it comes to DJing and write all of these things down. Don't think of just the obvious, but I'm talking music pool subscriptions. I'm talking, the suits that we wear, everything that you spend money on when it comes to your DJing profession, whether you have an assistant. In my case, I have an assistant and a videographer. So I take all of these price points, all of these things that I'm spending money on, and I write it down on a spreadsheet, compare it to what I'm charging, and subtract and see, okay, is this a profit margin that I'm comfortable with? Do I need to either cut expense or do I need to raise my rate? And most times I'm for the thought of raising my rate, right? Because again, I am providing a service, I'm providing an experience, and I take a really hands-on approach with my couples that I feel like I'm worth it. And then another thing you can do is if you are a newer DJ, try offering package deals. Package deals make for a really great way to offer multiple price points for multiple different types of couples. One thing that I learned when it came to listing out your packages is always list out your most expensive package first. I don't know what it is about the psychology of this, but when someone sees the best thing, right, and they're like, oh my God, this offers everything, they normally don't want to downgrade to the medium or low end tier package. So if you list your first one first, it just does something to the psychology of it. I read this somewhere and honestly, it really works. So think about that. Package deals are also a great way that you can do this. All right, so let's talk about some negotiation tips. How can you actually negotiate and get what you're worth? Well, the first thing you got to do, man, is you got to be confident. You got to know your value and don't be afraid to say no, right? There's going to be couples out there that are going to try to negotiate and lowball you. But someone once told me, and I say this all the time, if you're the DJ for everybody, you are a DJ for nobody. You got to really focus in on your people, talk to those people, and I guarantee you they're going to be happy to pay what you're asking, if not wanting to pay you more, all right? The next thing you have to do is highlight your value. Where are you different from all the other DJs out there? You want to emphasize not just your experience and your equipment and, I do this the best, but you really want to get to know this couple and you want to make sure that you are the person that can solve their problems, okay? Asking the right questions. Hey, well, what does the perfect wedding look like to you? A question I like to ask them all the time is, well, have you spoken to any other DJs? What kept you from booking that DJ? And that one right there, y'all, they will literally tell you why they didn't book somebody else. And you can emphasize why you're different, right? So that's a question, kind of keep that in your back pocket. And then the last thing is offering alternatives. If a couple is really super tight on a budget, maybe they really want to work with you, but Maybe you could suggest scaling back on certain things to reach a point that works for you and them. Another thing that I like to do is instead of like offering a discount, what I will do is maybe bundle something in for them. So like for instance, for me, Dancing on a Cloud doesn't really take that much extra money, right? I could go buy $40 worth of dry ice and save the sale for 40 bucks, right? So that's something I like to do a lot too. So maybe you could, try bundling something that isn't going to cost you an arm and a leg to throw in to save that sale. But again, you gotta be confident. You gotta highlight why you're different, figure out the issue that they're having and solve it. And then lastly, offer them some alternatives, man, that you can save the sale with. All right, so just to recap, guys, remember, when it comes to DJing these weddings, man, you're not just playing music. You're creating an atmosphere. You're creating an experience for these people. So making sure that you are charging what you're worth, and those couples are going to thank you for it. But anyways, if you found this helpful, I hope you got some nuggets from this. Let me know down in the comments, did I miss something? Do you agree with me? Are people insane for DJing weddings for less than $800? Again, I think that's $800 is still a really low amount. If you look at the national average for DJing weddings, I want to say it's like $1,200 to $1,500. So make it a goal, man. If you're not at that at least national average, get there. And if I can help you in any way, let me know down in the comments. I will see you guys next time. Hope you have a great one. My name is Nate Acosta. Until next time.